Now, I did a part one where I talked about how the Force Awakens is the same movie as A New Hope, and that's a pretty good comparison. And then we get this movie. And I stand by, and when I posted a Luke Skywalker video on my Facebook recently, and people commented on it and told me why I was wrong about my depiction of Luke. And the more and more I thought about it, more and more I've watched people's reviews of it and defending it, the more I realized, yeah, no, I was right all along. This movie is the biggest disrespect to Star Wars I have seen. And I don't want to sound like how you gotta respect Star Wars, oh hum bum bum, but to a point we kind of know what we want in Star Wars. The fan base has always been there. Even Mark Hamill would comment on how they ruined his character and things like that. But there's stuff here. Now, I talked about Luke explicitly in another video, so I'm going to avoid the Luke topic. I want to talk about everything else in this movie and what it does wrong from a world building standpoint of a misunderstanding of what Star Wars has already established. It's kind of like establishing you have a win button. You have a character that can instantly win by thinking about it and then never uses it again. You go, well, why doesn't just use the win button? Why is there a reason why? And the writers have to kind of get out of that. This felt like an active hate for the Star Wars canon and the fans going, I need to subvert everyone's expectations. Just like putting, telling you to kill the weeds, but putting fertilizer in. So, stab. I think Ryan Johnson's a great director. I think Knives Out and Glass Onion were great. But I think the whole subversion here kind of took a turn for the worse. Now, this is the main criticism. This is a movie about magic space wizards intended for children. How dare you get mad at things? Well, when you're invested in a story, and this is important for anybody, stories transport us, right? We want to be, depending on the kind of story told, we want to be taken away to a new world. We want to experience it. We want to feel what the characters feel. That's why film and books can be so powerful and make you feel real emotions and inspire people to do legitimate great things. I mean, the communicator from Star Trek inspired the real life cell phone. Like that level of connection happened because they were able to buy certain things. Yeah, space travel's a thing. It works. So some things, the answer is, oh, it's magic and looks cool. Other times it violates things, and you go, well, why didn't they do this? And it kind of boggles the mind and makes people into stories. We as human beings are storytellers, and we love being invested. So I think this argument completely inane. I'm going to be ignoring it for this video. Okay, so this movie wanted to tell a specific story. And the story they wanted to tell was about this ragtag rebellion with a lot of kooky characters, with a lot of comedy, a la like Marvel, telling a story against the fascists. Easy tale. There, the Empire's fascist. I have no love for Nazis myself. But here's the thing. Yeah, they're not rebels. This is the thing that boggles my mind the most. They're not. They won the war. They established a republic. A republic is the dominating system in the galaxy. There's one group of rebels in the sequel trilogy, and it's the First Order. You can have a rebellion who are bad guys. January 6th was a rebellion of the bad guys. I guess that's political, but I don't like people storming my Capitol building. They're not rebels. In fact, they have a line where Fim says, "Oh, you're scum." And he goes, "Oh, I'm rebel scum." And you're going, interesting, but this kind of defeats everything the other characters did. Their stories and their heroes. Are we just saying that doesn't matter? Are you that great that you want to ignore the world building? And to a point, I think that's what this was. It's just saying, I don't like the old stuff. Here's the new Star Wars, my Star Wars. Now, I think Johnson got a bad hand. I'll give the credit here. Uh, Force Awakens set up a really stupid world from a sequel perspective, and Ryan Johnson had to write in there. But he didn't have to make some of these decisions. Obviously, it's a committee. It's not just Ryan Johnson, but he's the easy punching bag. Technology. There's a scene in the new movie where the treads have the speeder bikes have treads on them, and according to the wiki, it's because they have better traction. But in the previous movies, we saw speeder bikes that could fly and not touch the ground. Um, I guess you saw something that looked cool, but if you think about it for 10 seconds, you're going, this makes no sense in the context of the universe. Bombers. The opening scene starts with these World War II inspired bombers doing a slow bombing run, the same way that floating fortresses would battle against, would fly with escorts from the Allied powers. Here's the issue. We've established what bombers look like. It's that vehicle right there called a Y-wing. We saw them in the fourth movie, and in the fifth movie, they're bombers, and they're fast, and they're light, and they can deliver a high payload. Huh. So people who think about it go, well, why don't you just use that? The answer is, well, because, I suppose. TIE fighters in context, I talked about this in my previous video, but TIE fighters only exist to expand the Empire's rule quickly rather than dogfight. And if you're the First Order, you'd want to build something better. I get they want to be iconic. I don't hate this one, but it still irked me, but nothing that bad. Uh, with TIE fighters though, there's a scene in the beginning of the Force of the Last Jedi where TIE fighter is able to outmaneuver a X-wing is able to outmaneuver a TIE fighter, which they talk about in the movies that these movies are faster. They're based on the MiGs, and the X-wings are based on Mirages. So yeah, no, expanding the universe. Now this is a shot from Episode 2, which is not a great movie. This is a Jedi starfighter, but you notice it has that ring around it. It's kind of showing the technology hasn't progressed to the point where it is in A New Hope. So kind of like a cool. This is Lucas's world building, throwing a thing and making you go, oh yeah, that makes sense. And he did a lot of bad decisions. Don't get me wrong, but some of it did make you think like this is technology I think done right. When in the this was in the past, so it was weaker. While the others are, well, these seem tedious. All right, this is the big one, the Force. And this is going to be, I think, the most controversial statement I have about Star Wars. Now, the Force is described, the Jedi and the Force is described in A New Hope as the guardians of peace in the galaxy, following the light side of the Force, which is good, and the dark side, which is evil. And they kind of talk about the powers, how Jedi feel the Force and let it flow through them, thus pushing and pulling. And the dark side manipulates the Force, shooting lightning, choking people with it. Even healing is considered a dark side power in a lot of the universe canons. And in fact, in the movies, they talk about Darth Plagueis the Wise, who could heal better because he was forcing the Force to do something that it didn't want it to. The concept of good versus evil, people have a weird opposition towards of Jedi good, Sith bad. They have an opposition to that. They say, well, it's a spectrum. It's got to be, oh, moral grays are important, and no one's entirely good. But I find this view to be very lacking towards what I think the Force was meant to be and how what stories we should be telling. This is just my opinion parts of what upset me the most is it's kind of telling people these movies kind of told people and a few video essays collaborated this is it's about saying that Jedi are not good and Sith are not evil. And I say, well, BS. Um, Sith do terrible things and they follow the thing for their own selfishness. And Jedi are meant to be selfless. It's altruism versus selfishness. That's like the struggle of good and evil in this universe. To say that there's these gray Jedi who do neither, I argue if you're not on the light side, you're a bad guy. Straight up, right? Like if you're not on good, you're bad, and you can stray. Of course, there's gradients. You can have people redeemed sides. You can have people being more Jedi than other Jedi. I wouldn't say that makes them this concept of gray in concept. Qui-Gon Jinn talked about how he would use dark side powers, especially in the books. A character from the games, Jolie Bindo, would use dark side powers. But he's a Jedi. He said powers are neither good nor evil. It's how you use them, and I use them for good. That was what a gray Jedi used to be in the established universe. Now you have these characters going dark light. It's the same side of the coin. And from the original movies, well, no, it's not. And even in the prequels and the expanded stuff, it's not. The guys who whip out the red lightsabers do bad things because they want to. Guys who wear blue lightsabers do good things. The Force is not neutral. The Force is one or the other. And Jedi are good. And I think the need to change that to be kind of edgy is what I kind of read as the internet being like, oh, the Jedi aren't evil. It feels weird. I mean, you got the bad guys saying the same thing. You have Obi-Wan Kenobi, the good guy, unequivocally the good guy saying, you're lost. From my point of view, the Jedi are evil. Then you were lost. And then he's got the high ground. So he's got the moral high ground too. Ah, clever writing, Lucas. Concept of gray Jedi are dumb. Okay, there's this internet meme that went around that wasn't a thing of these guys who follow balance of there needs to be an equal amount of good and evil in the universe. And I argue from a Star Wars world building perspective and just from a morality perspective, they should be considered just also bad guys. Because they're saying, oh, there's too much peace in the world, better bring some war. Like, that seems really stupid to me, really dumb, and really insane. Literally, like maniacs, I believe, think that. In reality, the Jedi, the light side, is supposed to be like the what it's supposed to be. Their motto is there is no emotion, there is peace, there is no ignorance, there is knowledge, there's no passion, there is serenity, there's no chaos, there is harmony, there's no death, there is the Force. The Sith say peace is a lie, there's only passion. Through passion I gain strength, through strength I gain power, through power I gain victory, through victory the chains are broken, the Force shall free me. And by nature, this is why I think the original building was so cool, is the Sith. The Sith is very easy to fall to that. It's a very, very nice motto, but the dark side corrupts, and the easy path and the selfish path turns you more and more evil. Anakin had nothing but good intentions, nothing but good intentions, yet he was corrupted by those intentions. It's literally a story of the road to hell is paved with good intentions. You don't realize how far you've fallen, and that's a lovely story, which is why I think Revenge of the Sith is actually a good movie in a character study context. The Force also had kind of understanding. This is the scene where the ship gets blown up and Leia, like Superwoman, flies through space to land there. And when I watched this movie, I was going in the theater. What is this? We've seen Jedi do a lot of amazing things, especially in the books. And this is a power from the books. I'll give the credit there, but it wasn't ever in the film. And I talked about how this whole surviving in the vacuum of space thing in some of the expanded books, which have been deemed non-canon, so that hurts my previous argument, but it is true, shows that like some characters who were in the Clone Wars died for literally nothing. And in just the context of the movies, just assuming the movies are a thing, also in the books, only a powerful Jedi can do this. Talking about one character, this is Plo Koon. Plo Koon is a Jedi Master. He specialized in the Force to fly starships. That's his spiel. And he was gunned down in a starship, which is great. The scene itself, great. As you're going, wow, this is crazy. Then you're going, well, why didn't he just do the fly through space move? So I guess they were all chumps, and these characters were. It makes it feel like the old stuff were a bunch of idiots running around. These new guys can do whatever they want. Kind of hurts this building of a world that you've kind of already set up and already had to build off of. And I think this is the most egregious thing from a storyteller's perspective. It's Finn. It's Finn in this movie. Finn was a former stormtrooper, and I find this one like legitimately almost offensive. Opening up, wow, killing is horrible. Also, Finn, wow, killing killing the people I grew up with is neat. They laugh when they kill stormtroopers. Laugh. They blow them up. They shoot them into walls. They chuckle at how they get burned or bombed and shot at. And Luke and Han did that. But they weren't stormtroopers before. In fact, the humanization of stormtroopers that happened in the previous movie makes this one of the most wasted opportunities of a movie. You have a character that could have felt guilt about killing a person who are all captured child soldiers and we're cheering about it? Now, this is just one movie ago. To make a character like this who's forgotten his past, forgotten he was in the same situation as those guys there, and laugh as they die, I'm sorry, that's immoral. And you're taking a character who's supposed to be the good character, and he was a well-written character in the first one. It was a bad movie. The concept was great, but this made me upset how he just doesn't care. You had such glorious opportunities for people saying maybe this is wrong, maybe we should help these people. But no, let's laugh and blow them up. I talked about Luke extensively in another video. I'll just say, after doing a lot more research and having a lot more people contact me about him, I have not changed my opinion one bit. Just because you can establish it by writing of him having PTSD, it doesn't mean it was good writing or would make sense for the character. That's my spiel there. I have another video explaining that. Okay, here's a character that I think was awful. And I hate saying that because it aligns me with people who hate these movies because they hate women. And I want to establish that as a real thing of people who hate this movie because there's a female protagonist or there's a female character with purple hair who hate her because of that. And to me, I go, well, No, no, that's stupid. Uh, in fact, I think that I'll get to Rey in a second. I think she's a wonderful character, especially in the context of the movies. I actually liked Rise of Skywalker uh, because it overrid this movie. I'll talk about that in a second. But Holdo as a character is A, someone we're supposed to care about, but B, also breaks a lot of world building conventions. One, she's an admiral, and she dresses like that on a military cruiser, dresses in a dress. Now, there's a character named Mon Mothma, who was a senator who dressed like that. Well, yes, she did. We've seen female soldiers before, and we've seen female admirals before, and they wear military fatigues. It's about moving around a ship easier. That's just the costume choice. As a character, she's establishing this dominance. Leia says, "Oh, she's one of my oldest friends," and really, why haven't you talked about her before? So you wanted to throw in, you just throw in this character who does something and is the opposition to Poe in this rebellion of people who are rebelling for some reason. Again, not rebels, but apparently this is the resistance. She won't tell people their plans, and the plans fail in the movie. Now, you can talk about how she's a poorly that she's meant to be a bad character, and if that was the case, I would agree with her. But from the writings, she's supposed to be like the correct leader, and I think that's where you, as a writer, a world builder, and a teacher, can wants a narrative as intended, and it gets perceived extremely differently by people. There are other characters who could have fit that niche. If they wanted to pay homage to the past, they could have done Admiral Akbar. They could have done Mon Mothma. They could have made it Leia. The character ends by sacrificing herself. An emotional investment has already been made to these characters. We know them. This is a random character that we're expected to care about. There's something to say for these two a lot more important characters. Mon Mothma would have been a fantastic choice for this character. It would have established everything. And even if she made the same bad decisions, you can give reasons for it instead of saying like, yeah, she's just like that. The last thing. Oh no, not the last thing. Oh boy, there's a few more. Skip over that. Uh, we have a planet about Star Wars, and they spend time saving animals to throw this message in that hurting animals is wrong. It's like, yeah, I agree, but let's just do it in my Star Wars movie when they're fighting the Empire. Weird side things of this is an example of, hey, I want to show this other part of the world, but say, okay, I get it. They're all weapons dealers. Weapons dealing is generally bad. Got it. Neat. I'll touch on Rose briefly, actually. Rose in the opening scene, I think, is an amazing character. She shoots Finn because he's going to betray the rebellion. Amazing character. And slowly she becomes more and more against that. According to the end, where Finn is driving his ship and she crashes into him, saying that love is all that matters. Well, you're a soldier fighting a war against the enemy. Sometimes sacrifices are necessary, and that was kind of where she came. She went from a character that's not willing to make sacrifices to sacrifice everyone who's willing to make sacrifices to sacrifice everyone to save one person. Seems very a weird arc and a weird message to get through. Rey can do anything. Now, this is when we get into Rey, in my opinion, being a character that kind of hurts the canon from point of view of previous movies. Now, as this is her alone, I don't think this would have been a bad choice for her, but we have to throw all world building and context to what came before. It took Luke, who is the son of literal Jesus, weeks and weeks to train. He couldn't use a lightsaber properly. Rey gets in in a couple days and comes in ready to fight. Luke loses his fight. Rey doesn't. As a character, you need to give them some connection, even if they are a chosen one, which this movie establishes she's not. She's just somebody. It definitely hurts the mystique of what made Star Wars, of how Jedi are trained since birth. And then you can get somebody who just goes, oh, I can pick up a laser sword and I'm just that good. Well, no, even at the dumb world building, the midichlorians, which no one likes, still plays a role in these movies. And the one who would have the most midichlorians, I hate it, is Luke over there. Son of basically Jesus. Maybe Doug Vader would probably have more. So, the last thing I want to say of The Last Jedi is this scene. And this is the scene that everyone goes, but it looked cool. And yeah, it was pretty sick. What happens is they ram their ship at hyperspace into an Imperial fleet and it blows the fleet. Admiral Holdo is the one who does it. And this scene, while it looked really cool, entirely broke down what the entire struggle of the rebellion. Everyone made up this thing immediately of saying, hey, why don't you get a whole bunch of ships piloted by droids, hit the hyperspace button, and shoot them at the Imperial fleet? And by this context, that would totally work. That was one person and one ship blew up a fleet. Or, oh, here's the Death Star. Well, get 3 guys in ships and then have them escape pod it. When world building breaks, people realize it and people fight back against it and they say this is dumb. And the best argument I've ever seen to this is, oh, it looked cool. Again, yeah, but when you're dealing with something that has an established understanding, an established world, you don't pull the rug out from under people. It's important about knowing what your world is about and where the rules lie. So all of a sudden, you don't start off with a magic setting and turn it into a sci-fi setting without any kind of warning or foreshadowing because you thought it was cool. People need these in their stories, and the reason this all matters is because we tell stories as educators, and we need to be consistent and on tone with what we tell. The Last Jedi took something and broke it down completely into something that it shouldn't have been. Something that violated and disrespected, actively felt like I hated what came before. And we can combat that by understanding its flaws and doing better because of it. As for the Rey thing, last thing I will say is, in my opinion, making her a Palpatine was the best decision the movies could have made. It explained everything for me because it gave her a reason to be that good. And that, I think, was an example of let's fix the past. Other people hated that. And that's a conversation we can argue about in comments and so such. And I welcome those. I think they're a lot of fun to argue. Because truth be told, arguing about Star Wars, and I think this is the narrative as a social organizer thing, is a safe thing to argue about. We're not arguing about politics, even though a lot of people should be arguing about politics because it's important. We're not arguing about something that matters. We're arguing about something that's passionate to us. And it actually sharpens our debate skills, sharpens our ability to speak, and could even be used as a way to connect with students and let students be more comfortable sharing opinions by connecting to something that they already know. That's my spiel. Bottom line, Last Jedi was bad, and the Force is light and dark.